Okay, this is 7.6. This is solving linear inequalities. Before we've had equations, linear systems, and those were straight lines. Now these are inequalities, and inequalities mean shading. So a system of linear inequalities, just like a system of equations, is two or more linear inequalities with the same variables. You know your favorites, x and y. Now the solution to the system of linear inequalities isn't just one ordered pair. It's in an ordered pair that's in the solution set of each inequality. So it is in the shading of each inequality. If it is in the shading of each inequality, the shading is going to overlap. Overlapping shading. That's where the solutions for both inequalities is going to be. Now the graph of that is the graph of all systems, or all solutions. But so here's what you're going to have to do. To solve a linear inequality, the only option is to graph it. Step 1 is to graph it. Step 2 is to find the intersection of the graphs, intersection of the shading of the graphs. The graph of the system is that kind of intersection. There are some things that you do need to remember about inequalities. You need to remember that you use a dashed line for less than or greater than, and a solid line for less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Very common thing that was forgotten on the test. To decide where we're going to shade, remember we test a point, and usually you test 0, 0. It's probably the easiest of the points to test 0, 0, and then we shade the side that works. What side works on the inequality? So, oh, there we go. So your system is x is greater than y is your first inequality. Remember, there's no x in this inequality. You're going to see a lot of these today. Remember that y by itself is a horizontal line, but then x by itself is a vertical line. You're going to see a lot of these on your homework today. So y is greater than 1. That's going to be a horizontal line where y is 1. But remember, it is a horizontal line, and because of that symbol, it is a horizontal dashed line. Now, here's how I go about shading these. I really look at one inequality at a time. So y is greater than 1. That means I need all of the y values that are greater than 1. Is 0 greater than 1? No. So I would actually prefer to shade this part of the graph. And then I go on to inequality number 2. X is less than or equal to 4. That is a vertical line at 4, and it's solid. I do this all on the exact same graph. And I need it to be less than 4. Is 0 less than 4? Yes, it is. So we actually want to shade this way. Now, do you notice that I have some overlapping shading right now? Well, I'm going to do my third inequality. But if you're looking at this inequality, you need to be graphing. You know we need y by itself. So let's divide everything by 3. Y is less than 2x minus 2. Now, I'm going to completely ignore that I have everything on here and graph that. So negative 2 would be here, up 2 over 2, 2 over 2. Completely ignore that you have stuff. This is a dashed line. A lot of practice with that today. Now, I am going to check on my shading for this one single line. And if I plug in 0, 0, is 0 less than negative 2? No, it is not. So I don't want to shade the 0, 0, which is right here. I want to shade this part. Now, I know there's a lot on here, and you can do this a lot better with a pencil, but do you see that I have one section that has all 3 shadings? So this piece right here. right there has the red shading, the blue shading, and the green shading. Any other section just has two. That shading that has all of my possible solutions is my solution set for this system of inequalities. Everything else is not considered a solution of this system. So I'm going through and erasing this. Now, of course, me with my markers, I can't really do this. But what I would recommend is shading each one lightly. Shade each one very lightly. And then darken the overlap. You can do that. Or highlight or color the overlap. You can do this a lot better with your pencil. I'll show you another way. But now you have the solution to the system. Anything in this black triangle here is going to work for all three of those inequalities. So let's test it out. We're going to do both of these in the graph. And that graph would look like this, and it would be a solid line because of that symbol. And yes, you should really start thinking about paying attention to that. Now, another way that I do this, I always plug it back into the original. But let me show you another way I look at my shading. Is 0 less than 5? Yes. So if I'm looking at this line, the direction I'm shading is this way. Sometimes it helps me just to draw the arrows instead of actually shading it. So when I go to graph this, y equals x plus, or y is less than x plus 3, dashed line, it makes it a little bit easier to see, as you guys saw before. So 0, 0 does work, so I would like to shade towards the 0, 0 side. And then I look at my arrows and I figure out where would they overlap. And it's this part right here is where they would overlap. All of that is a solution to my system. Now you are going to have some that have 2, maybe 3 inequalities. You're going to be given a lot of these single ones. You need to remember that your x ones are vertical, and it is a dashed vertically, and greater than -2, so shade this way. And your y's alone are horizontal. This one's a solid. And it is a less than, so it's shading this way. And then I've got this other one. So let's go through this process. We are honestly taking everything you guys learned before and putting it together. There shouldn't be really anything new. So now I start at 6, down 1, 2, 3, over 4. Or you can just go down 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. But that is a solid line. Solid line. And 0 is less than 24, so I would want to shade down in towards there. And then I look at my boundaries. I need to shade. This is my area where all three of the arrows were drawing in together. So this is the area I shade. I do kind of like drawing a boundary around what I'm doing, but any point in this shading, would be a solution to all three inequalities. Very nicely done. Oh, you actually aren't writing inequalities today on these. We'll get to that later. This is not all of your homework. We only have, you have 8 all, 10 through 20 even, and 30 through 32 all. Basically, the key thing for today, we're going to do writing on Monday. Take one line at a time. One line at a time and graph it and draw the shading. One line at a time, graph it and do the shading. I'll leave you there with your homework. Have fun.